Thank you so much for inviting me here. When I was invited to the event, I did think, what on earth would I have to teach or talk about to these guys who put on amazing events all over the UK? And since I've been here this morning, I've also been running into people from Trinidad, from Hong Kong, so the expertise in the room is extraordinary. And I've learned something already, not least from My Little Pony and her expertise in how to tell people where to go. But I did have a think about what is it that Manchester International Festival in particular, whoa, these are the slides that those are the slides you didn't see. There you go. What is it that Manchester International Festival in particular might have to contribute to a debate and to ideas during the day? And certainly the thing that attracted me to the festival was that it is a festival of almost entirely new work. A festival that invites artists to come together, to try something that they've not done before, and then works for 2 years between each festival to make those ideas into a reality. So that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years, up to my first festival this summer, and I thought I'd start off by showing you a quick 2-minute video of some of the things that went on. Have we got audio? Have we got audio?
Yeah, sure.
Just plug it in.
Really exciting to be able to bring artists who are so passionate about what they're doing, so pioneering, and put them on an international platform.
The festival's for artists and for audiences locally, nationally and internationally. We have visitors come from all over the world, and we work really hard to make them welcome and make sure that their visit is special.
Always a great opportunity for a composer or an artist to have a new work exposed in such a big festival like this.
You're never really going to find this again. This isn't really something that just happens like that.
Manchester International Festival is bridging that gap. It's just a way for me to try something new.
What Manchester International Festival has always said is you have to do something different. We dare you. We want to take it a step further and do something a bit more avant-garde and, pushing the envelope a bit.
It's very difficult to pinpoint and put in any sort of box.
To be doing this on this level is an amazing privilege.
This is something which connected with Manchester.
I know we've had a couple of tragedies, what's been happening, but something like this is bringing us all back together again.
This all seems like it has to be done now and here.
This is like a moment for us definitely to shout loud and show that it can be different.
This definitely was a life-changing experience.
The biggest thing I've learned? Assume nothing.
I know some of you get busy in the summer, but there's the dates if you want to come along next time. So I inherited a festival that had a fantastic reputation for bringing artists together to do extraordinary and often very large-scale things. The piece of work perhaps that established MIF's reputation was Monkey Journey to the West, a new opera by Damon Albarn that opened the very first festival. And the festival continued to excel with projects such as Tree of Codes, which is a collaboration between Jamie XX, Oliver Eliasson, the artist, and choreographer Wayne McGrath, a piece that continues to tour the world and delight audiences, most recently at the Melbourne Festival. But perhaps the bit of MIF that particularly excited me was its capacity to go into unexpected sites, to go out of the theatre spaces and to do what you do, transform places and make them into somewhere new. And I had a bit of a history with that. This is an image from our work that we did at National Theatre Wales, up in the Brecon Beacons, just north of here. A piece called The Persians, created by Mike Pearson and Mike Brooks, which brought the very first play in the European canon, The Persians, onto an army range in the middle of the Brecon Beacons, a place where usually no one's allowed to go. Much of the sort of negotiation that I imagine many of you are used to in getting access to the space and getting audiences up there. Or we did a lot of work online. This was a piece where audiences could choose to either take part online or in real space, a piece called Border Game, where we declared that the border had been created between Wales and England. Doesn't seem so far away now in the days of the Catalonia referendum. And the audiences needed to, if they wanted to access Wales, they needed to smuggle their way across from Bristol Temple Meads via Great Western Railways, and while online players tried to catch them through an interactive website that filmed their every movement. Or perhaps most famously, The Passion of Port Talbot, where for 3 days, Michael Sheen and an extraordinary cast of 1,000 local actors reimagined a secular version of the Passion story all through the town of Port Talbot, with thousands and thousands of people, indeed probably the whole town and many people from beyond, coming to the streets to participate in the story. So, taking over at Manchester International Festival, I wanted to honour that tradition of big shows in exciting spaces. We started with one of our first shows being a collaboration between Manchester legends New Order and the artist Liam Gillick in a piece that took place with an orchestra of synthesizer players in the Old Granada Studios in the very space where Coronation Street used to be filmed. And we also continued to bring artists from across the world. This was a piece by the great German theatre director Thomas Ostermeyer, Returning to Reims, which was created just in the last 6 months before the festival as a direct response to the election of Donald Trump. But particularly exciting always is to go into those hidden spaces. This is Manchester's Mayfield Depot, a legendary semi-underground space where the artist Boris Sharmatz created a piece called 10,000 Gestures, a dance show in which not one movement was repeated. Every single gesture, every single articulation of a leg or an arm was unique and unrepeated by anyone in the cast at any point in the show. And this tradition of being able to work in unique spaces and to be able to commission work and support artists to do the unimagined really came into its own this year with our desire to work in public space. A goal that we'd set ourselves in advance of the attack in Manchester, but which became increasingly important after the public ownership and involvement in open public space became challenged really by that moment. We'd long planned an opening event that had been driven by the artist Jeremy Deller working with director Richard Gregory called What is the City But the People, where Jeremy wanted to place a huge fashion runway through Piccadilly Gardens, the main square at the centre of Manchester, a square that everyone likes to argue about and complain about. And Jeremy wanted to put about 150 unique individuals, people selected for something special that they had, which ranged from extraordinary dog walkers through to people who had really difficult histories, for example, a survivor of the war in Kosovo. And those individuals paraded that fashion runway one at a time while a huge screen showed a portrait of them and a beautiful piece of text taken from our interviews with them by Sonia Hughes, explained who they were. You can imagine that that piece took on a whole new resonance in the aftermath of the Manchester attacks. And when the very first person walked onto that runway, a guy called Stefan, who's a big issue seller, who used to live in Piccadilly Gardens, the applause from the audience in the sense that in some way the festival had helped the city take back its own public and open spaces was profound. Another work that week included work with artists Susan Hafuna and Wayne McGregor's dance company, working with new arrivals to Manchester to respond to Susan's exhibition To Gather at the Whitworth Art Gallery, with a day of dance and performance in Whitworth Park. And perhaps our most controversial event during the festival, artist Phil Collins transporting a statue of that great former Manchester inhabitant, Friedrich Engels, all the way by road from the former Soviet Union to arrive outside Home Arts Centre for a welcoming ceremony. And artists are really who we trust at the festival. Sometimes there are difficult issues that we need to face, but artists have the instinct to find those issues and respond to them. Those of you who visit Manchester at the moment will, I'm sure, have seen that there's a pretty profound challenge around homelessness in the city. There's all sorts of reasons for that, but it's a reality, and when you're creating a festival in the side of the city, it's a reality that you can't but be aware of. And yet I didn't want to come in and say we must do a project about homelessness, we must respond to this issue in a particular way. And therefore I was very relieved and grateful when one of the artists I've been talking to, Carl Hyde from the band Underworld, who'd I'd been imagining would come to me with an idea for a big show, maybe a big collaboration with another artist, actually said that he wants to work with the homeless people of Manchester, along with Rick, his colleague in the band, to find the stories of people in the city who were living on the streets and make them public in a way that created a more humane debate about the issue. He created a site-specific installation in an old shoe store up in the Northern Quarter, based on stories gathered not just by Carl himself, but by a community of homeless people who gathered around the project, talked to people that were part of their community, brought their stories to life, and made a piece that I think will have ongoing impact both on the festival and the city. And sometimes a festival needs to reach out further. So there are areas of the city that Manchester International Festival doesn't traditionally. And so in order to maybe share the joy of the festival more widely, we looked at how could we engage with those areas of the city, perhaps where we need to do a better job of reaching to particular communities. And so we set up a project where we looked at sharing our core business, not going out and saying, our festival is wonderful, why don't you come to it? But instead saying, we've got this skill, this thing that we do, that you all do, called putting on a festival. Would you like to put on one of your own? Maybe start small, and we'll help you. And so we set up a project called Festival in My House, where anyone in Manchester could put forward their house as a place to stage a festival. We help them imagine what might take place, who to invite, how to get through all of the legal issues that you need when you're putting on a festival. And we probably didn't advise them to tell people to fuck off, but in many other ways we shared the sort of expertise that I'm sure you use on a daily basis. And we ended up with 10 very different festivals in people's houses. And though on the completion of those festivals, we had a link in those communities, perhaps where we hadn't had one before. This is one by Nija, who put on a festival about Mendi painting, painting on people's hands and bodies in the preparation to Indian wedding celebrations, but invited artists from all sorts of traditions, Germanic graphic designers, graffiti artists, etc., to be part of that festival and to reinterpret her tradition. And we also embedded 50 young creatives in the festival. So people from through Manchester that wanted to be more part of the festival and who we shared the access to rehearsals, to things that were going on, and created an online portal running throughout the festival called MIF Live, where those young creatives could post their content in response to what was going on in the festival. So how do we gather all of this together? How do we make it all happen at the same time, in the same place, in the same city? It does take 2 years. It takes a team of very expert producers. Around about a quarter of the MIF team are producers, working throughout the 2 years of each festival to get that work into place. And we also, like all of you, need a good social space to hang out. So each 2 years we take over the area outside the town hall, Albert Square, to create what we call Festival Square, where everyone can gather when their shows are done, share what they thought, argue about what they liked, what they hated, and create a heart for the life of the festival. This year, we also wanted that hub to be online as well. And as I said, we created, working with the BBC actually, a space called MIF Live, where content from those emerging artists that we embedded in the festival was posted, but also live streams from shows, including the New Order show and What is the City But the People, our opening event. A constant stream of news, information, live art and activity. All of it drawing together into, I guess, a kind of festival online that meant that you could follow what was happening at MIF when you weren't there. So say you visited for a couple of days, you could continue to visit online throughout the 18 days. Or if you were in another country and couldn't get there, you could still be part of it and participate. And talking of other countries, the work does spread throughout the world. Those are just some of the places that those commissions, after we've made them, go on to tour. And we're very dependent also on festivals and venues that join in with us to make the work possible, co-producers and co-commissioners. But ultimately, the festival is about the city that it's born in. And I think this year we were able to particularly register that with our opening event, What is the City but the People? That celebration that said, of Manchester, this is a place that, even when times are tough, we really welcome people from across the world, and a city, even when times are tough, that we certainly know how to party. Thank you very much. We've got about 5 minutes for questions, if anyone would like to chip in. I think we've got a roving mic. I can't see you, so you might have to wave. Oh, come on, if it was My Little Pony, you'd have questions. Yeah, there's one over there.
Yeah, hello, Stuart from Henley Festival. Just a dull question, really. Where does your money come from?
It's not a dull question at all. So the festival does have grant support from the Arts Council and from Manchester City Council, and a lot of that support goes into the creation of the work, the actual development of the art projects. We do a good amount of box office. We don't, like a lot of you, sell a single ticket. Of course you can't for a festival across the city for 18 days. But there's a lot of really ambitious work around box office on the festival. And also the festival has been remarkably successful at pulling in sponsorship. So the business community in Manchester has really got behind the festival, and I think that it is a city, Manchester, that has proven that investment in arts and culture helps to change how a city's seen and helps to make it a place that people want to come to. And then finally, that element that I mentioned towards the end, the collaborations that we make with other festivals and venues, particularly internationally, who will often put money into the creation of the work, so that when it's been tried and tested and sometimes been tweaked and improved at Manchester, it can then go on to venues in other places, really across the globe. Done the $64 million question. Brilliant. All right, well, I'll leave it there. Have a fantastic festival, everybody. Have a fantastic Congress, everybody. And I look forward to seeing some of you during the morning. And congratulations on all your great work. Thank you.